my document, and then we can go from there. Okay, devotees, so we've got, just move that look. Right, so we're continuing our reading of the first chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome to all the devotees once again. Thank you all for joining regularly. Let me just get my screen organized, then we can go. Okay. So yesterday, I believe Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu did this, a part of this verse. So we will continue from where he left off. But before we start, I would just like to recite the verse. And before reciting the verse, we'll do the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Hudirayat Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki Krishne Spadamupagate Dharma Jnanadi Bhishaha Kalau Nasta Dusham Esha Purana Koduna Dita Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swamini Namine Snikta Cheta Sutra Neda Vagvinam Charasapitam Prabhupada Gata Pralaya Navami Bhakti Charu Padam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasha Vedishakari Srimad Bhagavatam 1:1-2 Prabhupada Ki Jai. Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrite Kim va parerishvara Satyorit Yavarudate Takritibi Shushubish Takshana. Just repeating the translation, which Vedanta read so nice. No, Vedanta's mom, I think, read nicely. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. So I got purport We're going to do, yesterday, I think, Vrindavan Chandra Prabhu ended after chapter third paragraph. So we'll start from the fourth paragraph today on the recitation. So I've got those, so 4, 5, and 6. So 3 chapters, I've got 3 paragraphs rather. I'll have it on 2 screens, so we'll have 2 different devotees recite them, if you don't mind. So let's see, anybody, just rather than me call out names, anybody who's ready can unmute and we'll start reciting, please.
You can read, Prabhu.
Yes, please, Ajay Prabhu.
The impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and about this is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagwan. Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than impersonal literatures and higher than Gnan Kanda, division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda division and even higher than the Upasana Kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Karma Kanda, there is competition to reach heavenly planets for better sense gratification, and there is similar competition in the Gnana Kanda and the Upasana Kanda. The Srimad Bhagavatam is superior to all of these because it aims at the supreme truth, which is the substance or the root of all categories. From Srimad Bhagavatam, one can come to know the substance as well as the categories. The substance is the absolute truth, the supreme Lord, and all emanations are relative forms of energy. Shall we continue?
Yes, continue this to the page, yeah.
Nothing is apart from the substance. I can't see it. Nothing is apart from the substance, but at the same time, the energies are different from the substance. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra. Need to move the screen up, Prabhu.
You can't see that?
No, I can't.
Any good?
Oh, yeah. This conception is not contradictory. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with the Gnana Madhyasya Sutra.
Thank you, Ajay Mukund Prabhu. Anybody else ready for the next page?
Can I try, Mukunda-Hari Prabhu, please?
Yes, Palika Bhattaji.
Hare Krishna. This knowledge that energy of the Lord is simultaneously one and different from the Lord is an answer to the mental speculators' attempt to establish the energy as the absolute. When this knowledge is factually understood, one sees the conceptions of monism and dualism to be imperfect. Development of these transcendental consciousness grounded in the conception of simultaneously one and different leads one immediately to the stage of freedom from the threefold miseries. The threefold miseries are: 1, those miseries which arise from the mind and body; number 2, those miseries inflicted by other living beings; and 3rd, those miseries arising from natural catastrophic over which one has no control. Srimad Bhagavatam begins with the surrender of the devotee unto the absolute person. The devotee is fully aware that he is one with the absolute and at the same time in the eternal position of servant to the absolute. In the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the lord of all he surveys, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know that his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. As long as the living entity is trying to master material nature, there is no possibility of his becoming servant of the Supreme. Service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Palikamati. Thank you so
you.
much. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Nitam Tam Jivam Sadavaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Dalita Shri Vikanti Shakha Vikamsya Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
So we go back to the sloka for a second, because Vendavachandra mentioned to me that he basically covered the two. Those two, if I can go back.
Hare Krishna Mukunda-Hari Prabhu, sorry to disturb you.
Yeah.
Can I just mention something? Prabhu, he did the translation of the verse up to the threefold miseries.
Okay.
And then he said the next person will do the rest of the translation of the verse.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah,
this is how it was done yesterday.
Okay, thank you so much, Palikamati. Thank you for reminding me. Yes.
Thank you.
So great. So then we go. That means literally was half the verse. So second half starts from Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Parerishvara Tadyori Zavarudate Tatithipi Sushruvis Tatshana. So that part we will do today, which says, yes, this beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need for any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, a Supreme Lord is established within his heart. So, Srimad Bhagavatam. So, see, Srimad, actually, we use the word Shriman, don't we? When somebody, we want to address somebody who's very opulent. He says, Shriman so-and-so. I know that Prabhupada used to call George Harrison, Shriman George Harrison, like that. So similarly, Shri meaning opulent, or something opulent. Srimat means with opulent. So opulence. So Srimad Bhagavatam is addressed like this. Bhagavad Gita is also Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Not all the scriptures are prefixed by Srimad, but these two certainly are. So glorifying the Bhagavatam once again by the word Srimad Bhagavatam, beautiful here. Prabhupada translates that beautiful. Bhagavate, so by this Purana. Vyasadeva is called Mahamuni, the great sage. And he compiled it in his maturity, which means, as I was saying when last week when we were doing the introduction, that he had compiled all other scriptures, but because of feeling dissatisfaction, he approached Narada Muni, his spiritual master. And Narada Muni then instructed him to compile something, a literature which will glorify Krishna. So this is why he started compiling the Bhagavatam. So it shows that it was done in maturity, which means it was done after a lot of thought. And once it is heard, is that when we hear this, first of all, it says there is no need actually. Bhagavatam contains absolutely everything. If one hears the Bhagavatam submissively, and not just hears, but one studies the Bhagavatam properly, there really is no other need. You don't need any other scripture. Having said that, Prabhupada has advised us that we should read Bhagavad Gita before we come to Bhagavatam. Idea being that by reading Bhagavad Gita, we will understand who Krishna is. And therefore, when we read Bhagavatam, especially when we come to the 10th canto and we hear about Krishna's pastimes, we will not misunderstand it, or we will not see it as some kind of a fairy tale. But otherwise, Bhagavatam contains everything for that whatever we need materially and spiritually. So that's all we need to go back to Godhead. He says sufficient is in itself for God realization. What need is there for any other scripture? And then we need to, what do we need to do? We need to submissively hear, submissively and attentively. And this message, by this culture of message, Bhagavatam, the culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within the heart. So one may ask the question, the Lord is already, we've been taught in the Bhagavad Gita, that the Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasachaham Hridisanivisto, 15:15. So one may question, look, he's already there. So why is here Prabhupada of this particular verse saying that he will be situated in, so established within the heart? So yes, the Lord is there, but the problem is we are not interacting with the Lord. That's the problem. The Lord is there trying to attract our attention. The Lord wants us to turn to him, but we are so engrossed in Maya that we are not even looking at the Lord. But by studying the Bhagavatam, by understanding the Bhagavatam, and also by getting the mercy of the devotees and the Lord, we will actually realize the Supreme Lord within our heart, and we will actually start communicating with him. And that's what is meant by established within the heart. So that's and tat kshanat, which means without delay. So it happens quite fast when we start becoming sincere. Tat kshanat. Kshana, we say kshana, but tat kshanat, immediately. So that is what I wanted to just discuss about the verse. We can now go on to the important, as we normally do, we will just pick up a few points. The first point I wanted to pick up was from this last bit of the verse where we said that it's going to be heard properly. So the importance of hearing is always worth remembering. And it'll come up many, many times, and it's always worth reminding ourselves how important it is to hear. So there's a verse in the 4th canto, 20:25, which gives beautiful reason why we should be hearing, and also explains who we should be hearing from. So this verse goes, I don't know this verse, I'll try and do my best to pronounce it. For 2025. Sarvottama shloka mahan mukha chuto bhavat padam bhoja sukha kananilaha smritim puna vismrita tattva vartmanam kuyoginam no vitaryalam vare. Very nice translation to this. My dear Lord, you are glorified by the selected verses uttered by great personalities. Uttama shloka means sort of highly selected verses. Such glorification of your lotus feet is just like saffron particles. When the transcendental vibration from the mouths of great devotees carries the aroma of the saffron dust of your lotus feet, The forgetful living entity gradually remembers his eternal relationship with you. Devotees thus gradually come to the right conclusion about the value of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not need any other benediction but the opportunity to hear from the mouth of your pure devotee. So you see, when we speak about the Lord's lotus feet, we say lotus feet. So his feet are compared to the lotus flower. And in the wall of the lotus flower, there is what we call pollen, right? Pollen, but in a lotus flower, it's like saffron dust. So a realized devotee, as I was just saying, a realized devotee is actually communicating with the Lord within the heart. And when a realized devotee, a pure devotee, when he speaks Krishna Katha, then through together with the sound vibration that we get coming in from him to our ears, we're getting particles of this saffron dust that's entering into our heart. And that in turn helps us to awaken our own relationship with the Lord within the heart. So it's very, very important and very nicely explained in this particular verse that literally, this is why it's important who we hear from. This is actually, this particular part, 4th canto, 20th chapter, is Prithu Maharaj praying to Lord Vishnu at his sacrificial arena. So hearing from devotees. One thing to remember here is to hear from devotees. If we hear from, Prabhupada calls them professional reciters. So professional reciters, they may be very, very eloquent. They may be quite knowledgeable as well, and they can probably recite and keep us entertained for days. And we can probably go in and listen to them in big numbers. But if the purity of the speaker is not there, we're not going to get this saffron dust. So whilst we sit there, we will get some entertainment value, and we will feel quite satisfied. But that is it. It's not going to bring about any transformation within our heart. So this is why repeatedly Prabhupada mentions in many of his purports, we must hear from bona fide devotees. The purer the devotee, the better the connection we get from our heart. And this is why I always, whenever I speak to anybody, I always say, please, 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 whatever you do, try and listen to Prabhupada every day. Prabhupada's lectures are there online, and you can just click Desire Tree, many websites where you can go and listen to Prabhupada's classes. You can simply go by subject or go by any chapter you want to hear, whatever, any text. Just click on it. Prabhupada's got hundreds of lectures, very, very nicely recorded. So we must thank those early devotees who had the foresight to record these wonderful classes of Bhagavatam or Prabhupada, which are so clear to hear. So by hearing from Prabhupada every day, we will get cleansing of our heart happening all the time. Important part of your hearing. And then now we go on to the purport, as we normally do. We will just go into some parts of the purport and then try and understand more. The Prabhupada starts this particular section, the fourth paragraph. He says, the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth is not the highest. Above the impersonal feature is the Paramatma feature, and above this is the personal feature of the absolute truth, or Bhagavan. So you can see in this picture, you've got the Brahman realization, with just the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. Then you've got the Paramatma realization, which is the super soul within the heart of every living entity. And then you've got the Bhagavan realization, which is the Supreme Lord himself in person. So there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, which we'll come to in the 2nd canto, which is quite famous. Anybody in the class know that verse, which talks about these 3 aspects? Anybody doing?
Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdate?
Yes, Palika Mataji, exactly. Do you know how it starts?
Sorry.
Okay, it's 1 to 11, and it starts, Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yas jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. The translation is, learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan. So these are the same. This is the one supreme truth, which is realized in three aspects. And there are three types of I suppose you can call them spiritual practitioners, right? And they are jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. These are the broad categories. There are, of course, many subdivisions between that. But these are the three main types of transcendentalists: jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. And they're all worshipable because they're all trying to realize the Supreme Lord in their different ways. And then, but the thing is, the realizations that the three types of practitioners get is different. So would anybody tell me, what do the jnanis realize? Perfection for the jnanis is, yes, Kanta Mataji?
Is it Paramatma? No,
No, it's Brahman.
no.
Yes, the jnani is actually,
Brahman realization.
jnanis would reach to Brahman realization. Their perfection would be
Brahman
Brahman realization.
Yes.
So because they are studying the Vedas and the literature, and then by their own mental concoction, they are making progress gradually, and they will reach the Brahman realization. And then the yogis,
The super soul.
super soul, Paramatma, exactly, because they are meditating upon the super soul within the heart. So their perfection is actually realizing the Paramatma feature of the Lord. So both these are not incorrect. These are both the realization of the same absolute truth. But then the bhaktas, who did they realize?
Bhagwan.
Bhagwan, exactly. The ultimate feature, the Bhagwan. So bhaktas realize the Bhagwan feature. So one who is in the Brahman realization, he is not aware of the Paramatma and Bhagwan realization straight away. Eventually he may come to that, but straight away he's not. Similarly, one who is in a Paramatma situation, he may be aware of the Brahman situation, but he is not aware of the Bhagwan situation. Again, he may come to that eventually. But one who is in the Bhagwan realization situation, he already has the realization of Brahman and Paramatma. So this is why the Bhagwan realization is the complete realization. The others are also transcendental realizations, but they are not complete. This is how Prabhupada explains it. It is like the example Prabhupada gives is in a remote village, children had never seen a train. So then there was a new train line put into that near that village. They all went to see the train arrive for the first time. So three of them were there. So one sees, it's nighttime. So when he sees the train approaching, he sees a big white light, which always is in the front of the engine. So he sees that and he says, "Oh, I've seen the train, I've seen the train." He runs back to the village and tells everybody that the train is a big white light, because that's all he's realized, right? He didn't have the patience to wait. The other two had the patience to wait. And the second one, he actually sees the shape of the train. And he says, "Okay, now I've seen the train." He runs away, goes to the village and says, "No, light is a light as well, but it's like something pulling many carriages and is snaking along the line. That is a train." So you see, his realization is a bit more complete, but still not completely full. And then the one person who has had the patience, the one child who had the patience to wait all the way till the train arrives on the platform, he can then see there's a train driver, there's an engine, there are all these compartments, and there are people in the compartments, they're all coming out. So he then went back and explained. So you can see that he already knew about the light, he knew about the shape of the train and the carriages, and finally he knew also about the driver and the passengers and everything else. So similarly, this is how the Bhagwan realization is. So it's explained, these are explained in different ways as well, like an elephant, blind people touching the elephant and how they describe the elephant, how one is touching the side of the elephant, he thinks the elephant is like a wall. Person who's holding the tail of the elephant, he says elephant is like a snake. One who's holding the leg of the elephant is like a pillar. So like that, depending on what we are exposed to, we are getting this kind of truth. But they're all aspects of the same absolute truth, and none of them is wrong. So this is what we have to remember. So yeah, and then Yeah, in this verse it says that even the great demigods are confused about Krishna. Muhyanti yat surya. So because of this kind of false sort of half truths, even sometimes the demigods get confused about the form of this ultimate form of the Lord. Then Prabhupada says in the purport, Srimad Bhagavatam gives information about the absolute truth in his personal feature. It is higher than the impersonalist literature and higher than the Jnana Kanda division of the Vedas. It is even higher than the Karma Kanda division, and even higher than the Upasana Kanda division, because it recommends the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. So it's actually expanding the previous point. So there's a verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita from Rupa Goswami. So actually, it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking to Rupa Goswami, and this explains about how the bhakta, about from other kind of practitioners, how the bhakta is the one who actually is peaceful. So this Krishna bhakta nishkam ateva shanta bhukti mukti siddhi kami sakaliya shanta. Because a devotee of the Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruity workers desire material enjoyment. Jnanis desire liberation. And yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. The Prabhupada says in the purport, a Krishna Bhakta has no desire for his own personal benefit. He is completely protected by the Supreme. Avasya Vrashtakshive Krishna Vishvasha Palana. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that he is desireless because Krishna will give him protection in all circumstances. It is not that he expects any assistance from Krishna. He simply depends on Krishna just as a child depends on his parents. The child does not know how to expect service from his parents, but he's always protected nevertheless. This is called nishkama, desireless. So this is how the devotional service is the highest, even higher than the Upasana Kanda. Upasana Kanda is worshiping demigods, but the devotional service of the Supreme Lord is the highest. Prabhupada continues in this purport. Srimad Bhagavatam explicitly promulgates this simultaneously one and different philosophy of the Vedanta Sutra, which begins with the Janmadasya Sutra. Janmadasya Yata, this is the beginning of the first verse. So this simultaneously one and different philosophy. What is it called in Sanskrit?
Achinta Veda Veda Tattva.
Very good. Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. And this, what does it mean in English, Palika Mataji?
One and same, simultaneously one and different.
Exactly. Inconceivable oneness and difference of the Supreme Person and his energies. So inconceivably, because this is why achintya, inconceivable. So from our normal logic, we will not be able to understand it. But then examples are given, like the sun. For example, it says the sun and the rays. So in one way, the sun and its rays are the same. The sun, it radiates heat and light, and its rays also radiate heat and light. So we can say when we open the curtains in the morning, we can say, oh, we've got sun coming into our room. We actually use that term. The sun's coming into this room. In the other room, the sun doesn't come in. So in one way, it's right, the sun is coming in. But in reality, the sun is so far away, it's not coming in. It's the rays that are coming in. So in that way, it's one and different. Qualitatively, they're the same, but the sun is vast, is huge. The rays are particles, some particles of the sun, like that. And Prabhupada says, in the light of Bhagavatam, text 1, he says, in the purport, there are two parties of philosophers, generally known as the Monus and the Dualists. The Monist believes in the oneness of the absolute truth and the living entity. But the Dualist believes in the separate identities of the living being and the absolute truth. About these two classes of philosophers is the philosophy of Achinta Veda Tattva, or the truth of simultaneous oneness and difference. This philosophy was propounded by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his explanation of the Vedanta Sutras. So you see, in India, you will find there are staunch philosophers who will say, no, everything is one. ultimately we are all one. Right now we are covered by Maya, but once we get rid of Maya, we become one with the Lord. So we are all Lord. I am the Lord, you are the Lord, but we are just covered temporarily. So that's like oneness. And there are other philosophers who are completely dualists. They say, no, there is no oneness. The living entity is always separate, and the Lord is always separate. So they are very, very staunch. But Mahaprabhu then took the middle road, and he said, yes, it's Achinta Bheda Bhetattva. So we are one in one sense, because our quality as a jiva, we are the same quality as the Lord. But in terms of quantity, the Lord is vast. The Lord is Babu, and we are Anu, like that. We are minute. So this is the difference. So in that sense, we're different, but otherwise, quality-wise, the soul is eternal, so is the super soul, and so is Supreme Personality Godhead. In that sense, we're all the same. So these are different philosophies in India, and one day we have time, we will go through some more detail on this. Now it says the knowledge, purport continues, the knowledge that the energy of the Lord is simultaneously one with and different from the Lord is the answer to all mental speculators' attempt to establish energy as absolute. So these mental speculators, they actually say that energy, that is all. The energy is a supreme. They think that there is no person, but actually the absolute truth is this energy, some source, and some energetic source from which everything begins. They don't believe in the person. But then there's a verse in the Shvetasvatara Upanishad which talks about the fact that it's the Lord, and the energies are not independent. So natarsya karyam taranam cha vidyate natat samasya drishyate parasya shakti vividaiva shruyate swabhaviki jnana bala kriyacha. Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is almighty, omnipotent. He has multifarious energies, and therefore he is able to remain in his own abode and without endeavor supervise and manipulate the entire cosmic manifestation through the interactions of the three modes of material nature, Sattva-gun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. These interactions create different forms, bodies, activities, and changes, which all occur perfectly. Because the Lord is perfect, everything works as if he were directly supervising and taking part in it. Atheistic men, however, being covered by the three modes of material nature, cannot see Narayan to be the supreme cause behind all activities. It's a very important verse, this, because there are a lot of people, even in the Western philosophies, they believe there is no person, this is all happening automatically. But yes, in this verse it says, yes, Swabhaviki is happening automatically, but it's because it has been set up by the Supreme Lord. Even in this material world, we have knowledge of machines that work automatically in factories, but they cannot automatically work by themselves. They have to be set up by some engineer, some programmer, for them to then work. So similarly, the whole program of the material nature has been set up by the Lord, and then everything works automatically. And Prabhupada says the devotee is fully aware that he is one with the Absolute, and at the same time, he in the internal position of servant to the Absolute. So he's actually one, but eternally he's a servant. And again, Madhya Lila 2108, 109, Chaitanya says, Jivera Sarupa Hai Krishnara Nitya Das, Krishnara Tatata Sakti Bheda Bhed Prakash. Suryam Sakirana Yaishe Agni Jwalachaya Swabhavika Krishnara Tina Prakara Shakti Haya. So it is the living entity's constitutional position to be an eternal servant of Krishna, because he is the marginal energy of Krishna, and a manifestation simultaneously one with and different from the Lord, like a molecular particle of sunshine or fire. Krishna has three varieties of energy. So Krishna has three varieties of energy. This is described as Antarangi, Bahirangi, and Tataksha. Antarangi is the spiritual energy. Bahirangi is the material energy. And the Jiva Tattva, we are all Tatashta. Why are the Jivas Tatashta? Because Jiva have the ability to either be in the spiritual nature or they can be in the material nature by choice. So this is why these are the three energies. So time is running away. Let's finish off. So then Prabhupada says, in the material conception, one falsely thinks himself the Lord of all he surveys, and therefore he is always troubled by the threefold miseries of life. But as soon as one comes to know his real position as transcendental servant, he at once becomes free from all miseries. So this reminds me of this beautiful verse in the 3rd canto, chapter 25-23. What ashraya katha mishta shrunvanti kathayanti cha tapanti vividastapa naitan madgata chetasha. So engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Prabhupada says in the purport, there are multifarious miseries in material existence, but a sadhu is not disturbed by such miserable conditions because his mind is always filled with Krishna consciousness. Sadhus are always interested in hearing about the activities of the Lord or his devotees. Since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they are forgetful of the material miseries. Ordinarily, conditioned souls, being forgetful of the activities of the Lord, are always full of anxieties and material tribulations. On the other hand, since the devotees always engage in the topics of the Lord, they are forgetful of the miseries of the material existence. So it's like, it's not that the miseries don't exist. So one may think, okay, now I've become a devotee, I will never be miserable. So it is said that miseries are inevitable, but suffering is optional. Okay, the meaning is this, that miseries will come. As long as you're in the material world, this material world is meant for those miseries. Dukhalayam ashashvatam, 8th chapter, 8, I think 15, Bhagavad Gita. So miseries will come, but if we can fill ourselves with Krishna consciousness, just like when we have an operation, when we go for an operation, a surgery, by giving us anesthetics artificially, our consciousness is removed from the parts of the body which are going to be cut. So similarly, if our consciousness is absorbed in Krishna all the time, then our consciousness in the materials aspect of our life will be very dull. It'll be non-existent, but it'll be less. Therefore, we will not suffer. We will suffer, the miseries will be there, but we will not suffer so much. We'll be able to bear them much better than a normal karmis. Prabhupada then says, service to the Lord is rendered in pure consciousness of one's spiritual identity. By service, one is immediately freed from material encumbrances. Here, in the 10th canto, we speak of Lord Brahma is praying to Lord Krishna, and he's saying, Tattenu kampam susamekshamano unjana evatma kritam vipakam vidvagvapubir vidadan namaste jive tayomu ipade sadaya bha. My dear Lord, Lord Brahma is saying, one who earnestly awaits for you to bestow your cause of mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past mistakes and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. So once we are rendering service to the Lord with vag, vapur, which means with the heart, with our words, and with our body, then we are sure to go back to the spiritual world. So Sridhar Swami makes a comment, he explains in his commentary that just as a legitimate son has to simply remain alive to gain the inheritance of his father, one who simply remains in Krishna consciousness, following the regulatory principles of Bhakti Yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. In other words, he will be promoted to the kingdom of God. So very powerful. So we have finished up to, I think, 4, 5, 6. So tomorrow, Madhu Kumari will now finish the last 3 paragraphs of this text. And we will end here. So devotees, I will welcome any questions, any corrections, realizations.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Bhavata Mataji.
Prabhuji, just I read somewhere in a Prabhupada's book, there's milk is in a yogurt, but yogurt is not in a milk. Is the same as Achintya Beda Beda?
So that example is, you can, I suppose, use it in one sense, but not exactly. That is used generally to speaking in terms of the Shiva Tattva. They say that Shiva Tattva is like yogurt and Vishnu Tattva is like the milk. So the milk can be transformed into yogurt, and yogurt cannot be transferred back into milk.
I see.
But qualitatively, they are very similar. They perform differently. Milk, sometimes it says the milk actually can upset your stomach, but then by taking yogurt, you can cure your stomach. So they perform different activities like that.
I see. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Anybody else? Okay, I've got a question here from Jay Prabhu. What difference is there between hearing the Bhagavatam from a pure devotee and hearing exactly the same thing from any other source, or even reading yourself? How can you know for measure? How can you know or measure how pure a devotee is? Very good question. He's from Jay Prabhu, right? So as I was explaining, that hearing from a pure devotee, two things. Let's compare the three things. Reading, number one. Number two, hearing from a non-devotee. It's Krishna Katha, but non-devotee. And third one is hearing from a pure devotee. So by reading, it's fantastic. We all are encouraged to read, of course, Jay Prabhu. So by reading, what happens is, yes, we read something and we assimilate. But it's always said that whatever you read, only a certain percentage will be retained, right? So, it's got its limits. What is better than just reading is to read and then to explain it to others. If you read it and explain it to others, then it becomes firmer in your mind because you're having to then fully understand it to be able to explain it. And while you're explaining it to somebody, you are again getting a revision of that same subject matter and it's getting solidified in your mind. So that is better, right? Then hearing. When it comes to hearing from a non-devotee, because he is not a pure devotee, he hasn't got the touch of devotional life within his topics. He'll be speaking the same subject matter, but the purity and the potency will be missing. I'll give you examples of people who would sit in front of the television, for example. I'm not sure if the channel is still on. Asta used to be Asta. We used to watch it a long time ago. Asta. You get so many different people speaking, but at the end of the day, apart from entertainment value, nothing. Persons do not change their lifestyle. Nothing happens. It doesn't have any effect on us. So this is the difference. When a pure devotee speaks, he is speaking like a bird. We are all like baby birds, for example, right? And we haven't got the capacity to digest solid food. So what does a mother bird do? A mother bird will take the food, chew it, and then feed it to the baby bird, right? So similarly, a pure devotee has assimilated the knowledge. He has thought deeply about it, and then he gives it to us in a nice, smooth way. And when he delivers it to us, is that verse that we discussed today. His sound vibration is combined with the saffron particles from the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord, and that's why the potency is there. And those things enter into our ear, go straight into our heart, and cleanse our heart so that we can then hear and understand the message. I hope that makes sense, Jacob.
Yes, thank you. What about the other part of the question? How do you know how?
Okay, how? Yeah, good. Thank you for reminding me. How do you know who is a pure devotee? So there's one. If you're hearing somebody who you don't know first time, you just come across him on a TV channel. Of course, there's no way to know. But if you're meeting people regularly, the one yardstick, there are many, many ways to look at it, but one yardstick is someone who's always speaking Krishna Katha, someone who is always absorbed in talking about devotees or Krishna. You will meet many people like that, who will not be interested in speaking about mundane subject matters. They're not interested in cricket. They're not interested in football. They're not interested in, they may be aware of what's going on, but they're not really interested. They're more keen to always speak Krishna Katha. If you knew Mother Kalangana, she was one such person. If you ever met her, she would always speak about Krishna, devotees, the temple, nothing else. So now that is a pure devotee. So a person who is absorbed in Krishna consciousness, that is a pure devotee. So one who is like that. So that's one yardstick. The other yardsticks are when he's speaking, is he speaking with conviction that the Supreme Lord is the only shelter for all of us? Because many speakers you will hear will try, and because they want to capture a wider audience, so they will be speaking about, oh, you can worship this, you can worship this, you can worship so-and-so, you can worship demigods, it's all the same. Then you know that message is not going to be strong, but that person himself is not convinced what is the absolute truth. I hope that helps, Jai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda-Hari, Prabhu. Thank
Palika
you.
just one, if you hold on there one second,
Sure,
Palika Mataji. I'll just take some questions online. Sangeeta Mataji, thank you for thank you so much. Okay, many important points noted. I'm just making sure there's no questions there. Hare Krishna, have we brought many of the stories from Krishna from our parents, teachers? Is that not the same as hearing from pure devotee? So yes, this is a good question. This is from Saroj Mataji, saying that we have been brought up by stories of Krishna told by our parents. So when our parents are telling us our Krishna stories, then we have to take that as pure, because our parents are doing that just for only one reason, because they want us to become Krishna conscious. They may not even at the time know the term Krishna conscious, but they want us to be devotional. So our parents have got the right motive. Other speakers, they don't have the right motive. Someone's motive may be to earn a fee, maybe to earn some dakshina out of the class of lectures they're giving. They charge a fee to do this. Others' motive may be to just gain some fame, or look, so many thousand people come to hear me. So different motives are there, right? But a parent doesn't have any other motive. So that you can take as pure. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Then there's Shurbi Mataji, Hare Krishna, Shurbi Mataji. Just simple question. The text which said devotees forget themselves because they concentrate on reading books about God is also a diversion of mind on something constructive. Yeah, yes, exactly. Thank you for the comment, Shurbi Mataji. So when we divert our mind to something constructive, in this case, something very, very constructive, then our mind is less aware of what is going on materially. I think that's all I've got on the chat. Palika Mataji, you're saying?
Hare Krishna, sorry to disturb you.
No problem.
Hare Prabhu. Now, what I just wanted to mention that, like you are saying, that if it is not heard from a pure devotee, that our heart is not changed, because if they're a professional reciter, then it's not going to change us. But even the professional reciter, they are not taking shelter of any other. But if they are reading Srimad Bhagavatam and trying to explain, not being a pure devotee, but Srimad Bhagavatam is Krishna himself, as we know. But by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, because they're not taking any other, wouldn't they get purified?
So again, down to motive, Palika Mataji. If their motive is to get purified by reciting Bhagavatam, yes, they will get purified. Okay. If their motive is to just recite Bhagavatam for a fee, they're not going to get purified. If the motive is just to speak Bhagavatam so that people can glorify them, then it's not enough. So it's the motive comes into this, right? Okay, thank you. The other part, some may think that is Bhagavatam. So if you're hearing Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam itself is pure. So why can't we get the benefit? Right? That could be the other question. That he's speaking Bhagavatam, He may not have the right motive, but the Bhagavatam itself is pure. What
Yes.
about that?
Yes.
Right? To that, Sanatana Goswami says in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, he says, Avaishnava Mukhod Girnam, Uttam Hari Khatamitam, Shravanam Naiva Kartamya, Sarpo Shishtam Yathapaya. So he says, from the mouth of a non-devotee, a Vaishnava, even pure Harikatha Mutam, even pure Harikatha coming from his mouth, he says, Sanatana Goswami is saying, Shravanam Naiva Kartavyam, don't hear it and don't follow it. Why? Sarpo Shishtam Yathapaya. So paya means milk. Pure milk is pure substance, very nourishing substance. But if that substance milk is touched, sarpo, if it is touched by the tongue of a serpent, what's going to happen to the milk?
It's going to become
exactly.
poison.
So Bhagavatam may be pure, but if it's touched by the tongue of a non-devotee for material motives, then it will act like poison.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Pramila Mataji.
I'm just wondering, is someone who has not taken initiation classed as a non-devotee, although they follow the teachings?
Not at all, not at all. You know what Prabhupada said to one person who was talking about devotees? Prabhupada says that everybody who's following the principles of ISKCON, if you follow the 4 regulatory principles and you are following the hearing, chanting as prescribed, then Prabhupada says they're all pure devotees. So then one person asked, Prabhupada, what about that bhakta who just arrived last week? Is he a pure devotee? Prabhupada says yes. And his logic was that it's like the mango in a tree. There's the green mango and the ripe mango. As long as we remain on as long as the mango remains in the tree, one day it'll be ripe. Similarly, if we remain, and we also, there was one point in today's presentation, we touched on this. If we remain in Krishna consciousness, Pramila Mataji, we will be pure. But devotees, certainly we are. If you are following the 4 regular principles, we're chanting the 16 rounds, and listen to Prabhupada every day, we are pure devotees. We are what? We are devotees. So we cannot say. So that way, yes, people who are following Prabhupada's instructions are devotees. They're not non-devotees. Their initiation is obviously a formality, or what? Formality is probably not the right word to use, actually. Initiation is the progression of our commitment, lifetime commitment that we wish to make to the movement as a whole, as well as one particular guru. But apart from that, you are still a devotee.
So Prabhuji, taking initiation when you're about 12 years of age growing up was the norm when I was growing up. We all had to take initiation, but there was no Hare Krishna, and we didn't follow the Hare Krishna in my country at the time. So is that initiation acceptable, or is Prabhupada saying we must take initiation in the Hare Krishna conscious way only?
Yeah. So, Pramila Mataji, there are many different paths, there are many different gurus. I'm not sure which particular path you took the initiation in, but if that initiation was taken in one of the 4 sampradayas, there's 4 main sampradayas, right? There's a Sri Sampradaya, Kumar Sampradaya, Parama Sampradaya, and one more. Lakshmi is Sri, and Rudra Sampradaya, right? So these 4, if the lineage is from one of these, then it is a legitimate initiation. But because we are not sure, because we may not know for sure whether so many years ago what the sampradaya was, to be safe, why not take initiation here? Because ISKCON, first of all, we have everything is set up so methodically, and we have all the literature, we have all the senior devotees to guide us. So because taking initiation is just one part, Pramila Mataji, but along the way, until the time we leave this body, we need guidance. So if you're not getting guidance from the sampradaya that you took the initiation in, then it's not worth so much. So that's why we say initiation in ISKCON is more valuable for all of us now, because we are able to follow and get guidance all the way through.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu Mataji. Thank you. Devotees is coming at 9 o'clock. I know there's some other questions here. Just let me see if I quickly answer this. This is Drishti Mataji. Thank you for today's class. I want to know, if one concentrates only in Krishna consciousness, does it mean that other areas of life get affected, example, career-wise or education? Good question, Drishti Mataji. So yes, we need to do both. You know, it's like two tracks of a train. We need to make sure that our material life, especially when it comes to student life, we don't let ourselves down. ISKCON never encourage people to drop studies, because you need to be qualified, and you can then utilize your qualification in Krishna consciousness. So you need to, and we all need to maintain ourselves. You know, we need to be Lakshmi to take care of ourselves and our families. So you're not discouraged. So do not give up your career or education, but at the same time, find ways to bring Krishna into whatever you're doing. When you study, you bring Krishna into the study, you pray to Krishna that Krishna would give you the intelligence to use whatever you learn in your studies in Krishna consciousness one way or the other. In the career, yes, you can go for your promotions and you can fight for your promotions, but you can then pray to Krishna that Krishna, if I get this promotion, I'm going to utilize the extra money that I have to help your movement. I can utilize the extra prestige or extra power that I may have in your service, like that. But yes, both need to go hand by hand, just like in a family. We'll be all grihasthas, unless one is a brahmachari or brahmacharini. We need to cover both. So we need to look after our families, but in every way, we try and bring Krishna in. Think of our family as Krishna's devotees. So whatever we do for the family, we're always thinking of Krishna, like that. Devotees, it's 9 o'clock already. So
thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much, Stephen. So thank you all so much for your wonderful questions, and thank you for attending. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasinubhyo pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you for an excellent class.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very nicely explained, Prabhuji. Very nicely explained.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mobila Ben. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Color recording, please.
Yes, we will do that tomorrow. Yes, thank you. And Leela Purushottam Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Mute Macho Prabhu. You are muted. You are muted. You are muted, Prabhu. That's better. Thank you so much. Thank you for your encouragement, your blessings. Hare Krishna.
प्रभु कितना वक्त स्कूल में છે પ્રભુ સાથે તમે વાત કરો છો કેટલા વખતથી સ્કૂલ માં છે
સ્કૂલમાં લીલા પુરુષોત્તમ પ્રભુ તમને પૂછે છે ઉર્મિલાબેન પૂછે છે તમે કેટલા વર્ષથી સ્કૂલમાં છો?
Oh my God. Long time, maybe 40 years.
40 વર્ષ થઈ ગયા.
But I'm very slow in, cooperation. But
Yeah,
some have to stay with the devotees. But that's what that's the main feature, huh?
Yes. Urmilaben, I don't know if you remember, but Lila Purushottam Prabhu came to our home, to your place for class. Remember? He gave a class.
Oh, I look into the book.
Radhakanta Prabhu wrote him many years ago.
Yeah, so he's for the last 40 years he needs school.
40 years.
About 40 I've been connected, but I haven't done much for
Yeah.
I've been lucky to go to Ukraine regularly.